KindaSound Radio. You're tuning in to change.
Good morning and welcome to The Gifts Within Adversity with me, Stella Grace. I'm so excited today. Hi, Nikki.
Hi, Stella.
Hi. I'm so excited. We've got the lovely Nikki Owen here today, and she's a Metaphysics Counsellor. And I'm super excited to hear more about that in a moment. So we meet to do The Gifts Within Adversity every fortnight on a Friday at 10 till 11. The show is replayed on the following Saturday at 10 at the same time, and then made available as a podcast on the following Tuesday with Apple, Spotify, and of course the KindaSound website via the podcast section there. So The Gifts Within Adversity is all about finding tools from healing from trauma and how we can not only heal but develop on and grow as people from the adversity we've been through. And I'm sure you might understand, or even if not share, this viewpoint that often with traumas we can really, we wouldn't choose to go through them, of course, but we can certainly grow from them. And actually they can bring, not only gifts, but some other, not oftentimes unexpected opportunities, a new path, a new avenue that we might not have seen coming before. And so really my passion for the show is around, talking to a range of guests who are all bringing experience and wisdom from different tools that they share. And I know you're working inspirationally with a lot of people. And so I'd love to hear more about what is a metaphysics counsellor.
So it sounds very, difficult to understand. And sometimes I find it a little bit, just to just say broadly what it is. But meta means beyond, and the physics means the physical. So in short, it looks at beyond us as just one physical being and incorporates the universe as a whole, as one entity, incorporating many, many different aspects like the laws of the universe. But I started my journey about 3 years ago doing just a one-off 6-week sort of self-awareness course. And then I went on to do the foundation course and the practitioner course. And more recently, I'm now qualified to run these 6-week courses myself, which is what I'm really excited about, because through that 3 years, the learning was incorporated by me looking at myself. A lot of it is, and like you say, we do all go through everybody as a human being goes through things that they find difficult and that are traumatic. But it is about, like you say, empowering people and just getting them to maybe look at, is there a different way I could be thinking about this or looking at this, or are there things that I could be doing that could help me, A, heal from this, and B, like you said, grow and move on to even more and better things.
Yeah, amazing. And so how would your sessions and how would your work actually look? Do you work on, so you mentioned about the 6-week courses, that sounds really exciting. Do you work on a one-to-one basis?
Yeah, also on a one-to-one basis, and I've had clients who, and it's a range of things that, you can have things that can be super, super traumatic, and you could speak to anybody and they would say, wow, that is really, really big. But just as much, somebody could be carrying around guilt from something that, just one isolated incident that you may think that's not so much, but it is in their life, a massive thing. So we can work on a one-to-one basis with, usually we recommend sort of 4, 5, 6 sessions, just for each individual subject really that they're trying to work on and heal from.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And from my sort of studies and experience of trauma, I personally resonate that, like you said, it's not, one trauma could affect 2 people very differently.
Yeah.
And we could have what some might deem as, a mild trauma could be really significant and impactful on another person, couldn't it? And vice versa. Somebody could go through an absolutely huge, severe amount of trauma, but still be functioning, managing quite well.
Yeah.
And everyone's so different, aren't they? And
yeah.
like you say, traumas are, it's really personal, but it's also very vast in how it touches people very differently. And I think that's really lovely that you really sort of encapsulate the individual approach. It's not so much about the circumstance then as about how the person's dealing with it.
Yeah, completely. And you know, the thing with that is that as we're growing up in our childhood, you know, everyone's brought up in a different family, in a different culture, and we're all programmed in different ways. And our experiences when we're younger make us create stories about, you know, why this is happening. And no two children, even if they're grown up in the same household, have view events in the same way. You know, they're all going to have a different experience from that. And, you know, as we grow up and go through life, we then carry around these stories and these scripts that we sort of basically hold up in front of other people to read back to us, you know, based on what we've been through. So, you know, what you said there is really, really relevant in that you and I could go out today and we could both experience maybe a person who was rude and it may not bother you at all and it may bother me, you know, and that's the same with everyone. But I think it's a nice thing to look at, to think, you know, I've started saying not when things happen, not why is this happening to me, but what is this trying to show me? What is this trying to teach me? You know, and I think that takes away a bit of the sort of, you know, thinking it's a personal attack on you.
Yeah.
To look within, really.
Absolutely. I really love that as well. And I think that's such a shift. I remember that in my own journey, a real shift from feeling like a victim to actually feeling empowered by saying, actually, yes, lots of, you know, I have actually experienced a lot of severe trauma, but how, and of course I wouldn't choose to go through that. I mean, as a soul, my belief is my soul did choose that for my path of
and I believe so,
yeah, because we, you know, we chose these life lessons and these journeys and these traumas and these experiences and, you know, the contracts that we make and all of that. You know, I'm very much in a believer of the universal laws such as yourself.
Yeah.
So there's lots of crossover there, but I really remember a point in my life of feeling very done too. You know, I felt like life had done a lot and you know, it had, but actually the real empowering shift when I remember sort of finding a place of like, actually, you know, looking with a little bit of hindsight, looking back, you go, wow, if that hadn't have happened, then later I wouldn't have, you know, built this incredible resilience. I wouldn't have found these, you know, like fascinating study topics, met X, Y, and Z people, turned up at X, Y, and Z circumstances, you know, it all divinely orchestrates, doesn't it, into sort of the path ahead. And it's certainly not all easy, but without those really, you know, deep lows and traumas and, you know, healing processes, I would not be, as would none of us, I believe, be the people that we are today.
And I fully agree with that, you know, and I think it's good to point out as well that people like you, maybe myself, and you know, we were talking about Byron Katie and people like that, is that you find that people who are doing things like this are quite frequently people who have been through those amazing lows, you know, and like you say, you learn from them and you wouldn't have the knowledge you have now and maybe the empathy and stuff. And I used to do a meditation and in some of my sessions that I've got, and you like walking through a forest and you come to two, you know, like a fork, crossroads, and you want to go that way, and you know, every part of your being wants to go that way, and it's made impossible for you almost, and you're like thinking, oh my God, you know, but then you get forced the other way, but then there's a sort of like a crow above and he can see that the way you wanted to go leads to a big horrible ravine or something, or there's a tree in the way, and whereas the way that you weren't wanting to go leads to a lovely beach or a, you know, but sometimes you haven't got that aerial view of knowing what may be coming further down the line. And I think that's, you know, quite hard sometimes because we're so dead set on going one way.
Yeah.
You've got to be sort of open to whatever's coming.
Definitely, yeah, because we can sometimes be quite in it, can't we?
Yeah.
You know, we're in our emotional responses, we can be in our scripts, as you mentioned. That's really fascinating, isn't it? Because scripts is something that, you know, one of the facets of metaphysics and your practice. And again, it's quite transferable to sort of how we can go about our day and sort of, again, the universal sort of views of the world. And this was a really big one for me. So one of mine that I still work on, and I don't know if they ever leave us, but we sort of we manage them, or we grow with them, and sort of notice them and overcome them again and again and again. And one of my key ones is not good enough, and probably quite sort of classic, really. Growing up as a child of an alcoholic and abuse in home, those kind of big traumatic issues. But it doesn't have to be that, does it? To have something like a not good enough story, that can be quite a common script.
That's fundamentally what it all comes back to. I'm not good enough, or I'm not worthy, or no one loves me. But I think the thing is that what we don't necessarily realise is that we have made these sentences and these stories or scripts up when we are sort of under the age of 10 years old, because we didn't have the knowledge or the emotional capacity to make up anything else. But then we carry those into our adulthood, and we never, sometimes you don't question it, and I think it's when you start to question it and look at it and say, well, actually, is that really true? But until we actually address it, we can't heal it and bring it back into balance. And so I think that's where the power lies, is actually looking and saying, but that was 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago. I'm not bound by that. Every moment you can start and you can rewrite the story.
Absolutely.
Every moment is an opportunity to do that.
Yeah, I absolutely love that and wholeheartedly agree. And I think that's where our power is, isn't it? Our new rhetoric, our making that choice. And sometimes it's not easy to make that choice again and again and again, but that is our power, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think that's really lovely timing and relevance to go into your first song choice. So It's Affirmation by Savage Garden, isn't it? Do you want to say a little bit more about why you chose that one?
I just chose this one. I mean, I've loved this for years. I don't even know what year it first came out, but I just think all of the lyrics in it are very, very appropriate. And it was sort of the first song that came into my head when I knew I was coming to see you, and the relevance of it. And I just think everything in it is bang on, really. And you'll see that by the lyrics, like karma, what you give is get returned. And they are just all really thought-provoking, I think. And a really, really good song. I hope they like it.
Amazing. Yeah, thank you. And the lovely Django behind the scenes is going to play that one for us now. Thank you, Django.
KindaSound Radio, the station for a global community.
Welcome back, Nikki Owen, with me, Stella Grace, on the Gifts Within Adversity. And we have just begun discussing the fascinating metaphysics and Nikki's role as a metaphysics counsellor. There's so much wisdom and good stuff to talk about. It's really fascinating. We're going to come on to the laws of the universe, which is one of the kind of foundations of metaphysics, isn't it, Nikki?
So the laws of the universe are there all the time and working all the time, everywhere. Now, we may not know this. We may not know that, and we may not understand that. And like you say, it's about empowering people. And I think one of the most empowering things with this is that once you learn them and you know about them and you know how they work, then that gives you the chance to work with them and get the tools that you need to work with them. So, I mean, probably it's best to start with one like, say, the law of attraction, because I think maybe the majority of people out there have heard of the law of attraction in some form. It could be on a telly program, online, wherever. So the law of attraction, it's always working, whether you know about it or not. It's just how you use it inside. So, if we're always angry, we're always going to attract, anger and things. It acts like a magnet, and maybe the best way to describe it is on a personal basis. For myself, is that one of my things a few years back was that I was a proper people pleaser. I would, do anything for anybody, never say no. And you have two facets to all of your sort of psyche. They're in pairs. So you've got the pleaser and the selfish. And selfish to me was the worst thing in the world. Like, why are people selfish? Why would they be? Why would they just not be kind and giving? And how it works is that because I sort of push that side of me down, the universe then shows me selfish people as like a little sort of flip to say, come on, there's something in there in you that you need to heal. And then once you bring it into balance, it stops showing you those, because you don't need to learn that lesson anymore.
Amazing.
And it's like you could also liken it to having a garden. You know, say we've all got our own individual little gardens, and when you're going through real bad times and you think you've got a garden full of weeds, and that's because you've been planting seeds as a person, whether you know about it or not. Even subconsciously, you are planting seeds of some sort. Now, the law of the universe can't say, I'm not going to grow those seeds because they're weeds. It just has to grow them. So that then brings it down to us to become aware of what seeds we want to plant. And once you then become aware, right, okay, then these are the seeds that I'm going to plant, the laws of, you know, it has to grow them. And then the flowers start to come. So that's where the power is that being aware of these laws and then knowing how we can make small changes in our life to attract different things into our experiences.
Amazing, because that's such a frequency game, isn't it?
Yeah.
Attraction. I mean, even if you weren't someone who, I don't know, understood or resonated or had heard of the laws of attraction, let's say, I mean, like you say, lots of people do.
Yeah.
But even just thinking it's just a frequency, isn't it? It's a frequency match. And some things will just spin out of our reality if they're not, or not even come into it if they're not a frequency match.
Yeah.
And likewise, we are going to magnetize to the things that are reflection of ourselves. And I think it's fascinating. There's lots of these different laws, isn't there? So the law of attraction is one. That the law of, it's like the law of gravity, the law
well, there's the law of reflection, which is, you know, what you're sort of putting out there is going to get reflected back to you, and the law of cause and effect. And you can even go higher in that you can actually transcend all of these, and you can be in the law of grace, which that's when you're, you know, kind of done quite a lot of the healing and everything is just flowing, you know. And I think we've all been through times in our life, you know, sometimes you get up in the morning and you're in a bit of a bad mood for whatever reason, you're tired or you're grouchy, and you have a bad day. You start off by going downstairs and you stub your toe on the chair and you're like, ooh, and then that winds you up even more. And then you go out and something else happens. And it's like nothing is going right that day because, you know, you're putting out that energy. And conversely, you know, I hope people have had times when they have the day when they're doing something and it just flows without any effort. You know, when it's flowing and no effort, that's when, you know, it's working to your advantage.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love what you're saying about the power being in that awareness. So and I guess some of your work that you're doing with people is, you know, skilling them up with the awareness and the tools to be able to intervene in those moments where, oh, everything's going wrong, or, you know, and again, that's back to that script. I'm not good enough, or everything's not working for me, everything's going wrong. And it's intervening with the tools that you're sharing.
Yeah, and just being able to take that moment, you know, when something happens, just being able to try and step back, take that moment and go, right, take a breath, what is actually happening here, you know, rather than just going full on into, you know, and believe me, it's easy for me to sit here and say this, but I've done it. I've had something happen, something that maybe has not been major, but it's just triggered something in me, and then I've gone full on, you know. But once you've got that power to just step back and take a breath and step back and say, right, okay, what is actually going on here? What am I actually feeling, you know, and what is this actually trying to teach me or show me? Because that's what it all comes down to, is that it's not happening to you just because, you know, it doesn't like you or whatever, you know, things, it doesn't work like that. No. It's actually trying to sort of signpost you to the bits inside you that are the bits that need sort of healing and looking at.
I love that. And it really is back to that premise of the universe working for us, not against us, isn't it? And it can feel hard sometimes, and it doesn't always feel like that. And I love you bringing in that really authentic human realism that, you know, we don't always get this right as practitioners, as, you know, people who are studying this stuff, whatever. It's not easy, and hence why we're here looking at these tools, because we're all in it together. We're all human, and we're all, you know, going through this stuff, and on a growth path, it does get you know, very tricky. Like you say, the universe is poking our wounds, really, isn't it? To give us that opportunity to grow from them further.
Yeah.
So,
I think
really
something to point out there as well, which might be helpful to, you know, people who have either experienced or are experiencing trauma, is that the universe has got this very sort of a little bit of an irritating way, and the ones that teach us the biggest lessons are always like the ones that are closest to us, like your family, your partners, you know, and that's important to know as well, you know.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think, you know, again, like we can see that very sort of evidently in our childhood and those scripts again that you mentioned, but also day to day in our lives, because if we weren't sort of really pushed in terms of those comfort zones, again, we wouldn't grow, would we? And this is sort of back to my original point, and my original passion for this show topic is, you know, it's not just that we go through trauma as humans, but I feel like we're designed to grow beyond that, because it's this cyclical nature of evolution to me. And so, it's really fitting. But I also love one of your ethos areas that it really does start with us, doesn't it? And it's that reflection you mentioned. And it's a really lovely time to mention your second song choice, Man in the Mirror. Oh my goodness, I absolutely love this song. It's just that, you know, it was probably, I don't know if it was before its time, but if I could say that, but it just feels so relevant and so timeless, because, you know, that awareness of everything being in a reflection of us. And for me, this is really universal. This is in astrology. This is just in my general sort of day-to-day views of sort of growth as well, is that, you know, it's that as within, so without, as above, so below. It's that real reflection of, like you say, what things are kind of bothering me externally is absolutely pointing to an indicator for healing, isn't it?
And I think it's also, you know, showing that no matter what is going on around you, no matter what you are seeing in the outer, you know, try and sort of just push that to one side and look within, and that's where the change has to come from. And when you do that, that is when you may start seeing a different reality outside. Yeah,
and that being a process sometimes to get there, but it always starts.
Definite process, you know.
Yeah, it's amazing. So let's have the lovely Man in the Mirror. Thank you so much, Django, for playing that one for us.
KindaSound, tuning in for change.
Welcome back to The Gifts Within Adversity with me, Stella Grace, and my lovely guest, Nikki Owen. And we're talking today about metaphysics. We just had the Man in the Mirror there, such an inspirational song, and so very fitting and appropriate for what we're saying in terms of we're looking at the adversities and the traumas and sometimes just the day-to-day challenges, the niggles that can crop up in life. And really what Nikki's saying and what I really resonate with is often how the universe works is it's a reflection of ourselves, a reflection of something going on within that is poking for our attention to grow and heal, and as an indicator to what we might be needing, our needs, really, isn't it? So we have been discussing the laws of the universe and reflection, and for me also it's a lot about that. When we start to look at ourselves more honestly, we're in a more authentic place, aren't we? We're in a place of just that more raw honesty with ourselves, and rather than looking externally to sort of blame or judge or to, you know, which again is it's the human mind, isn't it, trying to make sense of experience and trying to you know, feel better and use those sometimes less helpful approaches. But when we're talking about sort of looking within, now that can sometimes be quite a jump, can't it? If you're in a challenging place, it's really hard to see sort of the bigger picture of what's going on. And so a lot of what you do, Nikki, I'm guessing is tools to help that achievable for people.
And I think that's what's important, is that, you know, people are like, well, you can sit there and, you know, talk about all of this, but what can I actually do to try and start, turning things around maybe, or feeling better about myself, and there's lots of little things that everybody, can do. Things like affirmations daily, meditation. But I think it's also important to say to people that, I liken it a little bit like going to the gym. If you want to go to the gym, you don't go to the gym once and then sort of pick up the biggest weight you can and think, right, I've got, and expect to see a muscle. It's little and often, and even me now after 3 years, there's still times after right, hold on a minute, it's not something that you sort of think, right, I'll do it a couple of times, right, I'm going to meditate for an hour once a week and it'd be great. Meditate for a couple of minutes every day, or twice a day, and build it up, and then you build that muscle up within yourself. The affirmations, like getting up in the morning, and if somebody says not happy with their body, doing the affirmation of I love my body can often be too much. That can be, well, that's like you said, too big a jump. But we could say, I'm open and willing to love my body a little bit more each day. And that may feel a bit more doable, and people will know when these things feel okay within themselves, because it won't feel uncomfortable. And I think that's important. Maybe gratitude journals, things like that. When you go to bed at night, sort of have a little journal by the side of your bed and 3 things that you were grateful for that day. And they don't have to be really big things.
No.
I was grateful the sun was shining when I had to take the bins out, or anything. Everybody can find 3 things that they're grateful for, and just by starting to do small things like this is sort of the equivalent of starting to join the gym, and you're not going to see, it's not going to just all click into place overnight.
No.
But the more you do it and the more you keep going, and the longer of the period, it does then start to have an effect, and you can feel the energy starting to change.
Absolutely. I love that. And again, it's back to frequency for me, because like you say, it has to be authentic. Like, it has to feel something not only achievable but authentic. With affirmations particularly,
Yes,
they can't be not true for us, can they?
You have to be able to believe them.
Yeah.
If you don't believe what you're saying, you might as well almost not bother, And one of the ladies who was our tutors on the course that we did, she said the saying, "I'll believe it when I see it." Everyone says, "Oh, I'll believe it when I see it." She said, actually, that saying should be turned around to, "I will see it when I believe it." And I think that's, beautiful, that when you actually truly believe something in you is when you will see it in your reality.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And it's one of the highest frequencies, isn't it? You told me about this fabulous study.
I came across this video on TikTok of this guy, and people had been put in this Faraday cage where there's no frequency, and they'd measured the frequencies of that people were emitting, and they could pinpoint each frequency depending on how that person was feeling, whether they were jealous, angry, in despair, happy. They could actually pinpoint their mood by these frequencies. And then this guy said, and what do you think was the highest frequency that was emitted from people? And I thought it would either be love or gratitude. And he said, well, that's, there was people in the audience, somebody said love. And he said, no, he said, but the frequency that is the highest is 4 times higher than love. And it was authenticity, just believing. And when you're authentic and you believe things. And he also, like we were talking about, said that when you meet somebody else, that actually doubles the, and it has a profound effect on even the people that you meet, the people you interact with.
I absolutely love that. And I think that in itself is really inspirational as well, because, sometimes we might not feel like showing up authentically. We might feel like hiding our true selves. And I think that's a really lovely example of just one example on that whole topic of authenticity and frequency. And it's really fitting as well with the KindaSound ethos, because you know, some of us hadn't presented before, and we're here just, you know, just our human selves, like really keeping it real.
Yeah.
And I think also for, you know, a wider transferable skill and inspiration for people is, and I sometimes remember because I can get shy or I can not feel like showing up one day. Again, you know, we're talking about these scripts that we have, we might not be feeling it with ourselves, with our confidence.
Yeah.
Or whatever's going on in a day. And actually, when we are able to step into our authenticity, we might inspire that in someone else, might we? Because like you say, that frequency goes up when it matches, when it's aligned.
Yeah.
Someone else then goes, oh, okay, I'm feeling my vibe again today now. Thank you. Again, that reflection with the universe, you're reflecting something in someone else, they're reflecting it in you. And of course, that works both ways. It's going to work the other way, isn't it? As well, if it's not a frequency match, the energy is just going to cancel out.
Yeah, and I found this when I started studying. I mean, I even said to my mentor lady at one point, I said, I don't know what's going on in my life. I said, but I'm losing all my friends. They're just, and there wasn't any major arguments. They were just dropping like flies. I was like, and I think it was because I was, you know, learning. I was learning all this stuff, and that was changing my energy and my frequency. That all of a sudden, the stuff that no longer resonated with that were dropping away, you know. And then going further down the line, it's been replaced by other people in my life now, and it's a totally different sort of tribe. And they do say, don't they, that your vibe attracts your tribe.
Definitely. And it's so true. You see it in action, don't you? I've experienced the same as you. You know, all of a sudden you're at a point in your life where you've got, you know, maybe less people around you, but they're definitely of the right energy. If you know, you've gone through processes, or the universe has just intervened as it does, and you know, you've got frequency match. That's ultimately.
And I think again, it all goes back to what we were saying at the beginning, you know, about being able to take that step back and be aware, because there's another lady, you know, that I watch her videos and stuff, and she goes into the fact that thoughts are happening all the time. They're happening whether we choose, you know, whether we like them or they are just happening. And I think that the power is to be able to step back, because she said, although they're happening all the time, you don't need to believe them. Yeah. And that's the thing, you know, you get thoughts spark left, right, and centre. But step back and say, actually, is that true? And do I need to believe that? And a lot of the time, it's not. Yeah.
I love that. And that question we talked about when we were planning this show, Byron Katie discusses it a lot in her work. Is it true? And I know that's just one of the steps of her work is a process as well, isn't it? But just that question is so powerful when you have a thought, is it true? Because often it's not.
No, and your natural instinct is going, yes, it is true, you know, because we want to be right and we want to. And then when she sort of goes on and says, can you know it's 100% true? And that then makes you think, oh, well, can I? Can I know it's well? No, not 100%. Maybe even if it's 99% true. Yeah. If there's that 1% of doubt, then it's not true. You know. Yeah. And I think the bit that's lovely as well is that when she says, you know, who would you be without that thought? And then if you can imagine yourself thinking the opposite to that, who would you actually be, and how would you feel if you didn't believe that thought? Yeah. Absolutely. You know, that's really powerful.
Yeah, because going back to what we were saying about the scripts and using quite a common one, I know there's many, but a common one of say, I'm not good enough. You know, that can show up in different guises, can't it? In different ways with everything we do, you know, going for that job interview, you know, having a conversation with that person, whatever, crossing the road to see somebody or to avoid somebody, you know, those kind of decisions we might make depending on if we're listening to that script of I'm not good enough, or challenging it by going, is it true? Who would we be without that? Who can we be without it? And then on to kind of, you know, more of an action step of actually, I'm gonna make that call, I'm gonna do that application, I'm gonna, you know, whatever it is, the thing that we're wanting to access that bit of confidence for. And so, it's just really interesting in terms of these tools that we have and the frequencies that are at play. And I just think, it's just really, really inspirational stuff. What would you say around, you know, some of those matters of frequency? Because some people may be coming in to this or into looking for a counsellor, for example. This may be new to them, who, you know, they might be thinking more of, oh, I'm a scientist, so I don't work in frequency. Because for me, actually, the two are very much more merging now. You know,
intertwined.
Studies of energies, you know, a real thing, frequencies at play all the time. Is that's a big part of the metaphysics kind of training?
Yeah, and I think, I've had people that I've worked with, and even people who I studied with, and we sort of got, you get matched up and that, and it's really funny because, you think your initial thought maybe sort of, oh, well, I don't know why I've been matched with that person, because there's nothing, we've got nothing in common, and, on the outside, on the exterior, you may be totally different, and you might think, oh, but as the time goes on, and I've found this in clients as well, is that as you've got through the sessions, it becomes evident why you are working with that person, and I think that just comes back to, the law of attraction, is that, you will be attracted to people where you might not see it right to start off with, that there's that common ground, or there's that understanding, or that empathy, but it does become evident that that's, that has been a major factor and works in play.
Yeah, for sure. Amazing. It's fascinating stuff. We're going to have your third song choice now, The Sound of Silence. Could you tell us a bit about why you chose that one?
So this song is by Disturbed, and it's been I believe it was an old Simon and Garfunkel song, and me and my dad just love this song, but it's one of those you've got to play really, really, really loudly. The guy has just got the most gravelly sort of voice that brings out something in you. And I love the song, so I wanted this to be in the show. So I actually went on as well and had a little look if there was anything that inspired Simon and Garfunkel to write the song and perform the song. And it was quite, not a coincidence, obviously, because it all happens for a reason. But there was a piece that said that Garfunkel once said that it was about people and their inability to communicate with each other, not maybe intentionally, but on an emotional level. So what you would see is a whole load of people that are sort of almost unable to love each other. And I just thought that that was really relevant as well. So yeah, just love the song.
I love that. We're going to talk about that after we've had Sound of Silence from the lovely Django. Thank you, Django.
KindaSound, tuning in for change.
Welcome back to The Gifts Within Adversity with me, Stella Grace, and the lovely Nikki Owen, discussing the metaphysics, the practice of metaphysics, and her role as Metaphysics Counsellor. So we've covered some really fascinating stuff today on the universal laws and frequency, and just how we can support ourselves and each other with tools for navigating this crazy thing called life, really, to put it sort of generally. And we just finished there on discussing your song choice, your last song choice, and the communication element meaning behind it is quite fitting, isn't it? So the premise of communicating with ourselves is quite a big thing in metaphysics, isn't it, Nikki?
Yeah, communicating with others, but also communicating with ourselves, like in our inner voice and our inner intuition. People talk about intuition. I think, for me, again, I think your intuition is a little bit like a muscle that you need to sort of be able to connect with and flex and exercise and train and build up. So I think maybe in this society, day and age at the moment, with people who, you might get up in the morning, you might have to drop the kids at school, you've got to go to a job, you've got to come home, you've got to do the shopping. I think there's a lot of noise in the world and a lot going on that can sometimes be really distracting for people, that you don't ever get that time, which again is really fitting with the song, to have that bit of silence, to have that bit of time where you can just go, right, breathe, silence, and just try and calm and quieten all the noise for a minute, so that you can actually connect with what is inside you and your own intuition. And intuition can be, phenomenally powerful. I've had experiences of thinking certain things and just having that knowing that this is what's going to happen, or this is what you need to do. And other people around you may be thinking and saying, you're crazy, what,
Yeah.
And I've met several people, and I think in maybe, in the bigger scheme of things, people who maybe have gone on to be famous, or people who have what appear to be these harebrained ideas, that they're going to do such and such and such and such, and everyone's looking at them going, there's no way they're ever going to do that. And they do, because they've got that inner intuition and belief in themselves that they're going to, and it happens, you know.
Absolutely. And I love that about listening to your gut more, because I think on a day-to-day basis we're so conditioned otherwise, like, you know, society, like you say, it's so noisy, it's busy, we're very much still in a structure at the moment, although I you know, like see things changing. I'm optimistic that things are changing about, you know, how the system works, because it, you know, it's not fit for purpose for everybody ultimately, in my view. And, you know, as we are at the moment, often many people are working a 5-day week, you know, 40, 50 hours just on the grind, you know, and if that's serving someone, awesome, you know, if someone's happy in that. But many people I speak with aren't, and, you know, we're very much sort of just conditioned really to be striving and outward focus, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's that busyness of striving for money, and that, you know, often in many views or in the conditioning equaling success. And actually for me, success is about thinking and listening into our own natural wisdom, our natural callings, like you're saying, like those out there ideas of the soul calling, and the soul going, okay, this is where you want to head, this is what excites you, this is what lights you up, and, you know, being more in a position to follow those things rather than what we think or are told we should be doing. So that's pretty huge. And I think the other thing that's really interesting about the gut feeling side of things is how often we can, again, suppress it because we might not want to cause upset, or we might not want to go against the grain, or we might be scared to speak out. There's some of those other real factors in trauma that I also understand, you know, from a history of trauma. So, you know, I love the empowerment element here of another message out there of listening to the gut and acting upon the gut, and you know, that having more priority and more importance now. And I think it's changing, where people are more understanding of that, of listening to the gut and intuition, and, you know, hopefully it not being continue to be as suppressed as it has been. So the communicating with self aspect, I really love that. And again, so it's not too big a jump for people and for our tool belt on any given day where we might be struggling. What sort of tips would you have around that? So you've mentioned sort of meditation and quieting the mind, and
and I think everyone has to do, you know, things that feel right for them, you know, like meditation. I think, you know, a lot of people can be put off because they think that you've got to lie in a room quiet and be like that. You know, that is not what you have to do, you know. You could be walking the dog and just sitting on the bench and looking out at, you know, a beautiful sky or a sunrise or a sunset, or, you know, and it doesn't have to be for a long period of time. It's just, you know, about sitting there trying to breathe. And, you know, you can do breath meditation where you actually follow a certain breath. You know, there's so much available out there. It's finding one that works for you. There's one that we got taught in the course called gobbledygook, and I used to do this quite frequently when walking the dog, and, you know, make sure no people are around. You just walk along and you basically go and make all these funny noises, and it's really hard to think of anything when you're sort of making all those noises and shaking your head, and it makes you look, you know, a little bit mad if people are watching, and it's not for everybody, you know. Like ASMR, you know, you do the meditation where you've got the tapping. Personally, that's not for me, you know, but I think you can't say to anybody, right, do this. You have to try a few and see which one you like. But I think, like you say, it's becoming more and more. People are finding different ways, you know, like where we live, obviously, you know, you've got people who swim in the sea, you've got, you know, ice baths, people are doing ice baths. That's becoming a massive thing now. You know, because I think if you get in an ice bath, you're not going to be flooded with thoughts of different things. You're going to be so focused on your breathing and what's going on. You know, there's so many different ways that you can access that small period of a few minutes or whatever to just only be focused on that, and then that, by what it is, will drown out everything else and just create that silence that you need to be able to just connect internally.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And I love it being achievable for us in any given day, you know, because some days we might feel stretched. I don't know, we might be parenting, chasing around our, in between school runs, or we might just be, busy juggling. So I love it being accessible and achievable. And like you say, meditation's been a really interesting journey for me as well, because I think years ago I used to feel like, I'm not doing it right, or that meditation had to be some, you'd reach the transcendental state of trying to go somewhere on this mad astral travel journey or something. And actually, it doesn't always have to be like that, walking in the woods, like you say. For me, it's in the sea, or like I can do those astral travel places
and
on
that
holiday,
makes it accessible for everybody. I think anyone who's got that thought in their mind that it has to be that, you've got to be sat like a Buddha on top of a mountain or whatever, and it's not. It is accessible for everybody. It's just about looking. I mean, you can find so much online these days of just trying lots of different little ones, and again, a few minutes. It's not, you haven't got to allocate an hour of your day for this, or 2 hours of your day, just a few minutes.
Absolutely. It can be something a couple of minute guided thing. It doesn't actually matter what the thing is, does it? And it doesn't have to look like you're fixing a box nicely meditation. Like we said, it can be a number of things. So I absolutely love that. There's so many gems here for people, Nikki, thank you, that are perhaps wanting to look at how we're healing from trauma specifically, or just for day-to-day life. And I love that, just being really, again, just really real, keeping it real on just getting through the day sometimes.
And we all have those days, and I'm the biggest advocate for that, to because sometimes you see people on shows like this, or on videos online, and you think, oh my god, like they're like this higher person, higher being, and like as well, we have those days.
Absolutely.
We have and I think that's really important to share with everybody, that we're not perfect. We don't just go through and everything works out our way, even knowing all this. But again, that's it is a like you said, a process, and keep doing what works for you. When you start doing it and it works, don't then go, oh well, I've done it now, I don't need to do it anymore, because things will slip back. Then you've just got to keep doing it.
Definitely, on that, it's like a real sliding scale, isn't it, between sort of getting through difficulty but also thriving, and we can really sort of go up and down that scale on any given day, can't we? So really, really interesting stuff. So where, Nikki, could people find you if someone's interested and wants to hear a bit more, either the training or to book a session? Where could people find
so
you?
I've got I've just set up a Facebook page. I've got a TikTok and Instagram. They're all under the same name, which is Soul Girl by the Sea. I can also be found on the School of Metaphysics. If you go on and you're looking for a counsellor, all my details are on there, my email, my phone number, and all that sort of stuff. That's all on there. There's not much on my Instagram or TikTok or anything at the moment. I don't think there's anything on my Facebook, because I did my facilitator course as an add-on back at the beginning of this year. And then I took the summer off, Stella.
Lovely, good for you.
Go abroad, see my mum, and swim and soak up the sun. And so I'm just working with a friend of mine at the moment, who I was on the course with, and we're putting together to hopefully start one of these 6-week self-awareness courses in the new year. So please follow all those pages, and there will be more content and more info coming very soon.
Amazing. If someone's interested in immersing in one of those 6-week courses,
and even just seeing what you put, and just, I think a big thing for me is just staying in touch with like-minded people, and staying seeing what people are putting up. And I just think that's great. For me, that's great. You might be having a bit of a rubbishy day, and then you see something, or a picture that someone's put up, or a quote or whatever, it's like, oh that can, just something as small as that can turn your day around, can't it?
Definitely, absolutely. Sometimes it's nice just to connect, and social media is great for that, isn't it? Connecting with like-minded people. And if there's time, we're going to hear your last song choice, which is Let It Be by the Beatles. Such a lovely one to finish on, about in terms of listening and looking at our resistance and resilience. Do you want to say a bit more?
Just resistance is just that's a big thing in metaphysics as well, is that what we're in resistance to will persist in our life and actually grow stronger. So I think if you can try, and is that, again, this is a work in progress, but just try to not be in resistance to almost anything, to get up in the morning and say, I'm open to whatever is going to come my way today, and not being in resistance and being in acceptance doesn't necessarily mean that we're saying, we condone everything, or we like everything, or we, you know, it's not about that and saying, well, that's okay that that's happening. It's just saying, I am accepting and I'm not in resistance and I'm open to it happening. And I think then we can become in a much smoother flow of life, and not suffer as much.
Absolutely.
And that's what it's all about.
And again, looking at what that might be pointing at within.
Yeah,
lovely. So thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you,
It's been
Stella.
lush to talk to you.
We're doing it in 3 hours.
Good evening. Many thanks and lots of love.
Thank you. Take care.